Hi everyone, Albatross Flamingo here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new rec and reference record, Want. These guys are an experimental music duo who put out a record a few years ago that caught my ear pretty strongly, No Youth. A record that pulled together elements of noise rock, black metal, doom metal, spoken word, and screamed word, and I was actually able to catch these guys live at one point, and they do all of this with nothing more than drums and a sampler. Now, there were some tracks on this record that I thought maybe were just a touch too indulgent, or songs that I thought could have been fleshed out a bit more, songs that were kind of bridges to nowhere or just ended a little too abruptly. But still, the really refreshing blend of influences on this record and the execution, the way these guys went about making their music, had me excited to listen to what they were going to do in the future. And this band's new record, Want, is definitely very cohesive and consistent in terms of mood. This is easily one of the moodiest, most depressing, most unforgivingly abrasive records I have heard this year. Lots of intense drum beats on this thing, glitchy noiseescapes and vocals that roar with aggression, with some spoken word and some very weary singing woven into the more subtle parts of this LP too. Now, even though this record is incredibly dark, there are some moments on this thing that are sweetly melodic, like with the piano and horn samples on the track Apollo Beneath the Whip. I imagine these are samples, whatever they are, they're gorgeous. It is a great track, but I wish instrumentally it built up a little higher in terms of intensity. And there are icy, beautiful synthesizer chords on tracks like Bankrupt and Convalescence too. But these songs as well could use a bit more intensity at the finish, or a bit more variation across the length of the song. Some of the instrumentals on this LP feel like nothing more than just really redundant foundations for some of the most hellish vocals I've heard on a record this year. Now, as we move away from the more melodic side of this LP, there are some very abrasive, unnerving songs in this track list, like the song A-Tax, which has an incredibly eerie drone in the background. Songs like this deliver some incredibly dark emotions in a really short span of time, like 3 minutes or less. Like the song A Glass Cage for an Animal, which resembles being tied up and dragged very slowly into an open grave in which you will be buried alive. Between the noise and the piano samples and the horn samples and the string samples that land throughout this record, there is quite a bit of sonic diversity, but I just don't really think Rec and Reference are at the top of the game they could possibly be in when it comes to songwriting, writing songs that are dynamic, have contrasting, defined, memorable parts. Aside from the initial blast of emotion or whatever the opening theme of whatever song on this record you're listening to is, there isn't much to hear. But there are some lyrics, a lot of which, while they are good, are sort of buried and thrown in the background and aren't nearly as upfront as I thought they were on the band's last full-length LP. But again, the lyrics, some hair-raising stuff on this record. If you thought the sounds and the performance of the vocals on this thing were twisted, reading into what is being said on this album is even more disturbing. Overall, I did like this record, but I still kind of felt like I got more of the same in terms of what the band did with their last LP. Maybe this album isn't as visceral. There were more tones on No Youth that felt kind of guitar-like. This album isn't nearly as bright or as shrill. It's much more toned down and kind of dreary, which is fine. I welcome the change in sound and the change in mood. I just wish these guys would write more well-structured songs, I guess. I'm feeling a strong 6 to a light 7 on this LP. Transition. If you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What do you think I should review next? And that's it. Anthony Fantano. Rec and Reference. Subscribe down there forever.